What's up, gamers? Today we got a crazy deck profile today. We're going to be going over the Berried Wings deck, also sometimes referred to as Aerodactyl Trade Binder. So anyway, first up we've got 4 Clefas, format staple. We always play 4 Clefas. Moving on, we've got our 2 copies of Buried Fossil. And this can be used, you can use Reconstruction to put a basic energy card back into your deck, and you can grab a Ammonite or Kabuto card. You cannot grab Aerodactyl, however this card can evolve into Aerodactyl, so that's important to know. Next up we've got 2 of the Neo Discovery Ammonite. This card is a repeatable fossil egg, and that's through the power of Revive Fossil. So once during your turn, before you attack, you can flip a coin. If heads, you search your deck for a card that evolves from Mysterious Fossil, and you put it into play on your bench, and you shuffle. You treat that Pokemon as though it were a basic Pokemon. So this is your key to repeatedly searching out your Aerodactyl cards to stifle your opponent's ability to evolve any of their Pokemon. Next up, I've also got one of the Fossil Ammonite. This is, of course, the reverse holo from Legendary Collection. But the Pokemon power here is Clairvoyance, which forces your opponent to always play with their hand revealed, which can often give up their potential plans that they have, allow you to have the knowledge to be able to play around some of the strategies and trainers that they have in their hand. And next up we have 3 Fossil Aerodactyl for its Pokemon power, Prehistoric power. No more evolution cards can be played. This power stops working when it's asleep, confused, or paralyzed. However, this is like really backbreaking for a lot of strategies in Pokemon. And of course, these are the first edition pre-release holos. Next up, we're running 1 copy of the movie promo Mewtwo, just a known good attacker. It's got 70 HP. It's a basic Pokemon. Energy absorption for its first attack to bring energy cards back from the discard pile and attach them to Mewtwo, and then you can Cyburn turn after turn for 40 damage each. Afterwards, we've got the Pokemon League promo Holo Mew. For 1 energy, you get to Psywave, which is 10 damage times the number of energy cards attached to the defending Pokemon. So it's like super great against Rain Dance strategies, because Rain Dance is still going to try and use Articuno. So this gives you an out against that, but also it has Devolution Beam, which for 2 Psychic Energy, you can choose an evolved Pokemon, and you return the highest stage evolution card from that Pokemon to its player's hand. So this, in tandem with Aerodactyl, is able to just make them devolve their Pokemon that could be hitting you for more damage, and then, given that Aerodactyl would be on your bench, they wouldn't be able to re-evolve that Pokemon. Next up, we've got a Lugia from Neo Revelation. Arrow Wing for 40. Or you may choose to flip a coin. If heads, it can deal 80 damage. If tails, this attack does nothing. So it gives you the option where if you really need to one-shot something, then you can try to do that. It also has 90 HP, which is really beefy for a basic Pokemon. Next up is Ho-Oh. We're playing a lot of different basic energies here. So Rainbow Burn has the potential to increase its amount of damage and just give us a little bit more static damage output. It's also got a different weakness from Lugia, so if your opponent's on water, it might not be a great idea to go with Ho-Oh. If your opponent's on Psychic, it might not be a great idea to go with Lugia. But both have really tanky HP and high potential damage output. And then for our final attacker, we have the Crystal Aquapolis Lugia Holo. One of the most expensive cards in the format, and it's extremely cool that we get to use Psychic. It's very similar to Mew's Psychic. However, this is able to change its type, so we could hit the opponent for a relevant weakness if we're able to do so, between the fire, water, or psychic typings. And then the other attack, Steam Blast, you'll see later on we're running a couple copies of Recycle Energy so that we can repeatedly Steam Blast the opponent turn after turn for 50 damage a turn. Now we're going on to the trainers. We've got one copy of Reverse Hollow Underground Lake. This allows either player, once per turn, to return an Ammonite or Kabuto card from their discard pile to his or her bench. This lets you do things such as activate computer search, discard your Ammonite, and search for Underground Lake, play Underground Lake, and then immediately after, play the Ammonite that you discarded, and then try and use that Ammonite to flip for an Aerodactyl. It's a really good engine enabler. Follow that up with 2 hollow copies of Computer Search. They are able to search your deck for any card at the cost of discarding 2 cards, which of course is not a disadvantage in this deck. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Gust of Wind. Choose one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and switch it with their active Pokemon. That's incredibly powerful, especially when you need to get a baby out of the active slot so that you can one-shot their attackers. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Reverse Hollow Legendary Collection Pokemon Trader. We're going to trade one of the basic Pokemon or evolution cards in our hand for a basic Pokemon or evolution card from our deck. Show both cards to our opponent, and then shuffle our deck afterwards. This helps with consistency and, like, you know, making sure that you have the right Pokemon for the given situation. After that, we've got 2 copies of Healing Field. I know it seems a little bit, you know, less efficient to have so many stadiums inside one deck. However, our Pokemon have extremely high HP, so Healing Field is much, much better for us than it is for our opponent. And it's, you know, once per turn, that player gets to flip a coin, and if they flip heads, they remove 2 damage counters from their active Pokemon. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Goldberry from Neo Genesis. This is just a Pokemon tool. You can use it in this deck to outlast your opponent's damage output. Anytime that there's 40 damage marked on your active your Pokemon, rather, it doesn't matter if it's active or bench, but anytime that there's 40 damage marked on a Pokemon, you discard the Goldberry, and then you remove 4 damage counters from that Pokemon. Next up, we're moving into 1 copy of Reverse Hollow Copycat. Just lets you shuffle your hand into your deck, then count the number of cards in your opponent's hand and draw that many cards. Super great after your opponent has used Eek with their Cleffa. Just lets you draw up to 8 and hopefully draw into some really good trainers. Then there's 2 hollow Professor Oaks. Just simple, discard your hand and draw 7. Of course, in WotC-20, we are not playing this as a supporter. We are playing it as a trainer, as per base set rulings. After that, we've got 1 copy of Reverse Hollow Town Volunteers. Lets you take 5 baby Pokemon, basic Pokemon, and or basic energy cards, shuffle them back into your deck. Just really good. Lets you try not to lose the game via deck out. Also lets you recycle some of the energies that you might not want to grab back with Mewtwo, just to refuel your deck there. After that, we've got 2 copies of Fossil Egg from Neo Discovery, just repeating the Ammonite effect. Sometimes if this is in your opening hand, but not Computer Search, it's just fine to flip Fossil Egg and try to get that Neo Discovery Ammonite onto your bench as soon as possible. We want that repeatable effect. Next up is Reverse Hollow Pokemon Fan Club. Just searches for 2 basic Pokemon, puts them right onto your bench. Really good format staple. And then finally, 2 Item Finder. Because we have so many one-ofs in this deck, Item Finder is really great at pulling something back that you might want to reuse. And it's also really great for discarding the Ammonites that you can get back with the Underground Lake. So that's it for the trainers. Next up, finally, we've got the the energy cards. So starting off, we've got 4 hollow copies of the double colorless energy. Just obviously there was a lot of colorless pips on our Pokemon's costs to an attack, so double colorless energy is really clutch here. Next up, we've got 3 copies of hollow rainbow energy. Provides 1 of any type of energy. Or provides every type of energy, but only 1 energy at a time. So this is really good for meeting the color requirements because we have such a wide variety of typings and colors needed for this deck. So I landed on 3 for now. That might change. Anyways, we've got 2 hollow copies of Recycle Energy. Recycle Energy is if a trainer, let's see, provides colorless energy. If a card would put it into your discard pile from play, return it to your hand, so including an attack. So that's why it lets us reuse Crystal Lugia's attack over and over again. Next up, we've got 4 hollow copies of Water Energy, and then 4 hollow copies of Fire Energy, and then 4 hollow copies of Psychic Energy, all just really great for powering up your Crystal type Lugia, also powering up your Ho-Oh, also powering up your Mew, your Mewtwo, Water Energy for the Ammonites. Yeah, just gives you a great spread without making it too inconsistent. And then you follow it up with the last 2 cards, Reverse Hollow Warp Energy. Cards are looking really great in Reverse Hollow, so you play Warp Energy as a free retreat. Sometimes, even though your Pokemon are super bulky, you need to get the active Pokemon out of there, and this is just a great way to do it. So anyway, that's a deck profile introduction to the Berried Wings deck. Enjoy.